This, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate guide to macros for Evade. For those who don't know what a macro is, it's basically a key that you can press on your keyboard or mouse, which can execute a function that you've programmed it to do. The macro can be anything from starting up Roblox to opening a file to spamming space for you. Now, just before I begin, this is PC only. You can't get any of these softwares on console or mobile, which kinda sucks. Anyway. If you want a great macro software, the first thing you should always do is look up the brand for your mouse or keyboard, because most of the time these brands have their own application you can use in order to customize your devices, and that includes creating macros. Now personally, I use a Razer keyboard and mouse, which means I use Razer Synapse for all my macros, but if you use Logitech products, then there's the G-Hub, and if you use Corsair products, then there's iQ. There's quite a few other brands out there with apps too, which I didn't bother testing because I also don't have those products, but most of them are pretty samey. I was able to create my Evade macros with each of these programs within the first few minutes of using them, and so all of these are very tailored to the user experience. Now, if you have a Chinese knockoff brand of a keyboard and mouse, then you might want to consider using something like Xmouse. There are plenty of tutorials on Xmouse out there which I definitely recommend watching. It's a completely free and safe program, however the only downside is that you have to use your mouse in order to use your jump macro. And make sure you don't bind left or right click to this, since that can mess up your PC quite a bit. Now, a very popular macro software you've probably heard of is Macro Recorder. However, this is more for practical use and not really for gaming. You can't really create a jump macro using this unless you find some sort of workaround, but I just didn't have the time. Now, of course, if you don't like any of the softwares I've suggested so far, then you can always look around. There are quite a few different softwares on SourceForge and GitHub. However, I am not responsible if you fall for any scams. If you are downloading anything from GitHub, make sure it's by a trusted person. One pretty decent macro software is TGM Macro, however it still doesn't perform nearly as well as the ones previously mentioned. But there is one final program I haven't mentioned yet. It's probably common knowledge by now, but if you have a controller, you can automatically jump by holding the A button. Of course, this gets pretty annoying though, as you have to press escape every single time you want to hold jump. But there is a program you can download to simulate a controller's inputs called Keyboard Splitter. Of course, you get it from GitHub, and personally I didn't try downloading it since it kind of asked for a few permissions I didn't want to give it. But if you are interested in checking it out, I would highly recommend looking at Justified's video. He has multiple guides on the software which are very comprehensive, and of course, because you get nearly perfect jumps every time, that would in theory be the best macro software for evade jumping. Anyway, I'm glad I could finally get this video out. It did take quite a while to test all the different macro softwares, but I hope this helped you guys a lot, and I'll see you next time.